What's up, everyone? Today we are taking a first look and going for a first ride on another bike from Primos Cycles out of Portland, Oregon. It's their new bike, the Mono. If you haven't heard of Primos, that's okay. They are very new to the bike game. Months ago or so, they sent me their Dame, which is a drop bar bike. It was their first and only model at the time, and I still ride that. I love it. It's a great bike. Crazy value, $800. The Mono is their newest one, and it is also $800. So if you're worried on the price point, $800. The difference is the Mono is their flat bar bike, and they call it their all-around bike. So it's got bigger tire clearance, flat bars, a more relaxed geometry on it. And if I had to say, it's probably a little more versatile because of just some of those different features there. I got mine in a size large. Right now it's only available in medium and large. They said they will let us know if it ends up coming in other sizes. Probably just going to be a small and an extra large. But for now, I'm assuming it's probably supply chain related. It is only available in the medium and large. It still covers a pretty wide range from 5'5" to probably about 6'1", 6'2". It is a chromoly frame, which is double butted, meaning it has some extra material removed from the tube. The front triangle, so these three, are double butted, which is going to give you a lighter frame, as well as hopefully some more compliance and a little bit better ride feel. It comes in this blue right here, which is actually cooler than I thought it was going to be. They call it Amazonian blue. And then it also comes in, I believe it's called Dusty Rose, which is more of an earthy pink. You can see some of these graphics here and things like that. I kind of like their style, their branding on everything. Set up with some 27.5 by 2.2 Cross Kings. While the bikes do only come with the 27.5, which can clear up to a 2.4, you are able to also run a 700C or a 29er in there with up to a 2.2-ish. It can clear that. The fork can clear a little bit more, has a little more clearance than the frame, but that's just generally what I would say if you're going to run matched tire sizes. The drivetrain is Microshift's Advent X with an 11 to 48 tooth cassette in the back. And I think this is a 32 tooth chainring up front. It looks kind of bigger. I would guess it's actually bigger than that. Let's see if we can find it anywhere. I stand corrected. It is a 40 tooth. So a little big for, I think, if you want to use this in more off-roady type things, but it's direct mount, so you can replace that if you need to. I think that's a super smart choice on the drivetrain. It's known to be super reliable, especially for the price. And it's nice because if you do break things, it's really inexpensive to replace the derailleur or the shifter. And that kind of goes the same for these right here. These are the Shimano MT200s. These brakes, I have some conflicted feelings about because they are incredibly reliable. I've never had any issues with them, at least 1,000 miles on some in some abusive situations, and they've never given up on me or caused problems. They just, performance-wise, aren't, the greatest. But again, this type of bike, the price point, really smart match on that. I don't know what would have been a better spec on that, especially for something hydraulic. One thing I really like is these bars right here, that they're swept back. They're just very much an alt bar, which kind of excites me because I love alt bars. And I'm excited to see if I like this. They're pretty standard looking, except for it's got quite a bit of sweep right there. And it does have a little bit of rise. This right here is probably the only thing that I would have immediately changed on the bike. This is a super long stem. That's going to make it, for the taller riders on the range, is going to make it more comfortable for them. But I don't love how it's going to affect probably the handling of the bike, as well as for me. This is an all-day, everyday comfort bike. I'm probably going to go with a little bit shorter stem. Now let's jump into the geometry really quick before we head out on our first ride. In the large, it's got a 617 effective top tube with a stack of 603 and a reach of 421. Both those numbers are fairly short for if you are coming from the mountain bike world, and if you're coming from a drop bar world, those might seem extra long. But it's actually perfect for this type of bike. I think it's right there in the middle to give you the ability to still run flat bars comfortably and to have some of the capability you get from a longer front end on a mountain bike, but you're still short enough to be nice and comfortable. Head tube angle on the large is actually 1 degree steeper than on the medium, and it's 71 degrees, and they both have a 72 degree seat tube angle. It's a little slack on the seat tube and a little steep on the head tube. This is not meant to be a mountain bike. That's not even the way they advertise it. Chainstays are 445, so not super long, not super short. It's going to be fairly stable. The bottom bracket is 65 millimeters of drop, which is going to be good for some stability with the 27.5. Interested to see how it is with a taller 700C or 29er. It might make it a pretty lively, agile ride there. I don't know if I would use that as much if I was loaded up. And speaking of that, yes, there are mounts everywhere. You get 3-pack mounts, rack and fender mounts front and rear, as well as bottle cage, and bottle cage under there. One final thing to address, if you're looking at that and saying, oh no, it's quick release, just remember, that's not the end of the world. Do I wish it was through axles? Yes, I do. I just think that there's some added stiffness, some better compatibility going forward. It's getting harder and harder and harder to find quick release wheel sets. And this is your very standard 135 QR rear, 100 QR front. But I'm also not going to dismiss this bike just because of this one thing. A storm is going to be rolling in pretty soon, so I'm going to head out on our test loop on this bike and let's get going. Even with this long stem, the fit is really not too terrible. I feel like I'll still like it a little bit shorter. Something about this stem just doesn't look or feel right to me, but it's not horrible so far. I don't feel like I'm super stretched out from it. If you're wondering on the weight, mine weighed 28.4 pounds without pedals. Whew. I wish the chainring was smaller. As I ride this, I just keep thinking it reminds me a lot of a 90s mountain bike. It's interesting because those 90s mountain bikes in early 2000s, those ones, if you find one that's in decent shape, they're still like $400 or $500. So this is pretty cool because for only a few $100s more, you can get kind of a similar vibe, but you get a 27.5 wheel set, whereas those are pretty much all going to be running 26. And then you get disc brakes, which is going to be real hard to find on those. And then on top of that, you also get all of like the mounting stuff, which is not common at all on those bikes back then. So you kind of get like, if you're a fan of those and maybe restoring and riding those as your beater all around commuter type bike, you get kind of the same thing, but with some of the things that maybe you weren't able to change or you wish were a little bit different. Let's hit a downhill. I just tried to hit a dropper. I did kind of bed these brakes before. That's my common problem here. Maybe I didn't so well. Yep, very similar feel to those old school bikes. This is gonna be like kind of the fun, sweet spot. Maybe some green and blue trails. There's something about the look and feel of the bike that is just kind of cool and retro, I guess, and makes it a little more fun to ride for some reason. If you've ever ridden single speed, it's almost the same feeling, where it's just so simple. You just feel like you're out there doing something different than most people do. It's not quite the same on this, but it reminds me a lot with like the biplane fork and everything of maybe Velo Orange and some of those brands. I think these bars are a great fit. They're really comfortable, but they're not super far out there. I kind of want to throw some racks on this bike and go ride around town, run errands. It just feels like that type of a bike. I also think the 27.5 is a smart choice. The bike's already pretty nimble with the geometry, but it kind of contributes to the old school feeling and makes it a little extra maneuverable, makes up a little bit for some of that gearing being high, at least on steep stuff. Everywhere else it's great. The frame's pretty compliant, just like the Dame, honestly. I do think this is a great candidate for suspension seat posts, so I'm gonna throw that on. This double track and these dirt roads, this feels right at home on. Woo-hoo. Little sketchy in the air. Don't know that this bike is let's just jump a bunch of stuff. Maybe around town, you know, off of the little, at the skate park or something, do a couple little things for fun, mess around off the curb. High speed though, not so much. Yeah, this would be fun on some flowy stuff. Just gets a little twitchy at higher speeds. Not quite as confident there. Ooh. Oh yeah. Ooh. Goodness. Little drop. Ooh. Roller, I guess. Okay. Well, because I can't set it up tubeless and everything, you do have to run a little higher pressure, and they're only 2.2 inches, so you do feel some of the hits and the bumps a little more. This literally feels like the bike I grew up on. Just a good old late 90s mountain bike. Just cruising around, having some fun. This, however, right here is where I'm going to be slower. Most definitely. Woo. Still fun in the tight stuff though. I'm actually pretty happy with the tire clearance. The 2.2 is skinny enough to be lighter and faster, but have plenty of cushion for some comfort and a little more traction than, you know, some of these flat bar ATVs are only clearing like a 50 millimeter or a 2-inch. There's quite a big difference in the tire volume. Kind of got to pick my way through stuff a little more. This section's always kind of fun. Going much slower than normal. A dropper could be fun. That's one thing I think I wish they had added, just on my first look, was maybe some cable guides for an externally routed dropper. That could have been a nice touch. Make it a little more capable. All right, let's talk about the mono. Overall, this is a pretty fun little bike. Do I think it's meant for mountain biking? This is just going off my first impressions. Yes and no. It depends on what you call mountain biking. If you are going to go on green trails and some easier double track and I don't know, maybe some flowy blues that aren't too wicked fast, I think it could be a great fit. If you are wanting to do more than that, this probably is not the bike. But again, Primos knows that. That's why they don't call it a mountain bike. I think the most important thing to keep in mind with this bike though is just the value of it. Again, $800, and they focus on putting the value and the money into the things that matter the most. You know, they've got Shimano brakes. They have a really reliable, well-known, tested drivetrain in the Advent X. They've got a threaded bottom bracket. They've got legit housings for everything. I think this is the stuff that's really important, as well as they add some nice little things that a lot of newer riders wouldn't really think of. They throw in, you know, a guard right there. The hubs are from Novatech and are known to be reliable, and they're sealed cartridge and everything. So overall, it's just a really good deal. I'm going to be riding this bike for the next couple of months or so, and if you want to see that video when I release it of my more long-term review after I've used different bars and maybe different tires and wheels and everything like that, be sure to subscribe. If you want to support me, consider buying a sticker or sending a super thanks, anything like that. But yeah, that's all I've got for you. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, drop them down in the comments. But thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.